You're gonna write a whole book in 5 days. When's the last time you even read a book? The Firm by John Grisham?
Hello! We're gonna be talking about books today, so prepare to be sick of me! Somebody asked me in my last video to talk more about books, and so I'm using this whole conversation as a makeshift Trojan horse. This is my excuse for talking about the books I want to read, but obviously I'm not a book tube channel, so I'm not just gonna dedicate a whole video strictly to the books that I like to read. So I'm gonna be sprinkling them throughout the entire video, and I'm also going to spend a good chunk of the end of the video talking about like 10 books that I recommend. We'll get there when we get there, okay? Just hang tight if that's what you're into. But if you're just here for the discourse and the discussion, then we're getting into that now.
Beckons through the leaves.
The way I'm about to fall out of this chair. As you guys know, TikTok is probably getting banned by the United States because that seems to be at the very top of the priority list. For some reason, I don't know. Despite the ridiculously blatant censorship that's happening right in front of our faces, and they're acting like we weren't gonna notice that, I'm confused. What did you think was... Anyway, despite all of that, I can't say that I'd miss the discourse surrounding BookTok, because TikTok has a lot of funny trends, has a lot of funny videos, there's a lot of great creators, but I won't miss the bad parts. And one of the bad parts is BookTok and the controversy surrounding the name BookTok. Some of you guys need to see a therapist, or maybe get a lobotomy, or maybe both. I don't know. If you don't take the lobotomy, then I'll take it, because Christ, it's either you or me. I'll take the bullet if I have to. For a while now, there has been this ever-evolving conversation about whether or not BookTok is ruining reading, or whatever. I don't know. So dumb. This is so dumb. Why am I here? Why am I making this video? I shouldn't have to make this video, because this is a dumb. This is a dumb. I just got back into reading consistently almost a year ago at this point, and maybe I'm not the best person to be speaking on the entirety of BookTok, but I'm gonna speak about the entirety of BookTok anyway. I'm not qualified to have this conversation, but I am going to plow through with enough confidence to make it seem like I know what I'm talking about. I don't know if it's just me, but I think that maybe it's just a little bit dismissive to generalize a whole space as one collective hive mind. Like, what is this, a wrinkle in time? Did somebody say a wrinkle in time? One of my favorite books of all time is the graphic novel version of A Wrinkle in Time. Only the graphic novel version. I have the regular novel, non-picture book version of the book. I tried reading it. I was expediting the lobotomy as we speak. It was not working. It's like I've only read Dr. Seuss books in my entire existence. I was like, but the pictures. So I bought myself the graphic novel version. Look at Charles Wallace. He's right here. Look at Charles. You can't say that the illustration of Charles Wallace in this book is not the most adorable little boy you've ever seen. Look at his cute little face. Maybe at the end of the video, I'll talk and explain more as to why I love that book so much. But whatever. I just wanted to show it off. Back to the video. When you refer to BookTok, you're referring to a lot of different genres of books. There's Spice Talk, who loves their erotica and their smut. There's the fantasy readers. There's the romantasy readers. Okay, it's different than the fantasy readers. There's Lit Talk, aka the literary fiction readers. I'm currently trying to wiggle my way into the literary fiction space. That's like one of my New Year's resolutions, was to read more literary fiction. And there's also contemporary romance readers. There's exclusively the YA readers. There's also horror talk, or like thriller TikTok, sci-fi talk, classic literature talk, etc., etc. Like, there's so many. It's unfair and, quite frankly, lazy to lump everyone into the loud minority of BookTok. When you criticize BookTok, don't beat around the bush. We all know what you're talking about. We all know who you're referring to. You're obviously talking about the romance readers, specifically the romance readers who prefer spice in their books. We know who you're talking about. Just say that. Say that shit with your chest. So annoying. Some readers have beef. Fresh, never frozen. Beef with the romance readers because they are the poster children of BookTok. Like, the top videos under the BookTok hashtag is a bunch of romance books that are probably by Colleen Hoover. And then they also like sprinkle in some ACOTAR, Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J Maas, or the Shatter Me series, just to mix it up. The ACOTAR series and the Shatter Me series, it's basically the diversity hires of default booktok. There's a running joke on TikTok about how everyone who got back into reading has to go through the canon event of reading Colleen Hoover before they discover the actual good books. Okay, there's some merit to that, all right? Because when you're trying to get back into reading, you're like, I would like to go to booktok. Right, the first books that you're being shoved down your throat are Colleen Hoover. So of course they're going to read Colleen Hoover first. That's the first thing they see. Thankfully though, not to brag, I never fell for that trap because I grew up watching Scooby-Doo. Thank you, Fred. Go watch Scooby-Doo, specifically Mystery Incorporated. If you didn't catch that joke, that was a good joke. You're just uncultured. The thing about Colleen Hoover and all the other books that are hyped up to an ungodly standard is that they're all easy books to read. When people wonder why people love those books so much, it's really just, it's the appeal, the very general appeal of the books. They're very low barrier to entry. They're very easy books to get into. They're basically the Maroon 5 of books. Everybody and literally their mothers love these books for some reason. There's some good criticism to be had with these romance books, all right? It's not all sunshine and roses. Some people believe that contemporary romances are all the same, and I sort of have to agree to an extent. I'm a sucker for a good old-fashioned contemporary romance. The last book I read, actually, while we're on the topic, The 7-Year Slip. So good. 5 stars. This is the second book. I've read 24 books this year so far. This is the second book I've given 5 stars all year. I love her. Okay, so technically this is not just a contemporary romance because it does have elements of magical realism because the female main character falls in love with a man who lives 7 years in the past. So, you know, there's a little something extra. It's not just a cookie cutter contemporary romance, but in my mind it's basically a contemporary romance with just a sprinkle of magic. It's kind of like going to Disneyland. Sure, there's like regular theme parks like Six Flags, but you know what's different about Disney is that there's a little bit of magic into it. Also, not only did I adore The 7-Year Slip, I also adore Emily Henry and her books, and also Ali Hazelwood. I like some of her books as well, like Beach Read by Emily Henry. So good. I loved it. I also really love The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I think that one's really good too. But if you're not into contemporary romances, of course, you're probably not going to like them because that's what they are. If you would like to read contemporary romance and you want like a semi-decent recommendation, I say start with those. And if you hate them, then you just hate having fun, I fear. Sorry, that's not my problem, that's yours. Sometimes contemporary romances can get a bit stale for me because of the predictability of it all. And hey, that's a valid criticism. I don't just hold that belief. A lot of other people do as well. Some people don't want to read something that's boring, and that's okay. That's why I use contemporary romances as palate cleansers, right? Like I read The 7-Year Slip while simultaneously reading Babel by R.F. Kuang. I'm adoring Babel right now. It's so good. I'm like 70% through the book at this point. I'm enjoying the crap out of it. However, after like 2-3 hours straight of me just reading Babel, it's like my brain started turning into Play-Doh. It's kind of like seeing your family again, you know, if you like your family. It's kind of like seeing your family again after a long time, you know? Like me personally, I haven't really been able to hang out with my family too terribly much for the past couple of months because it's been a really busy semester, but I'm going to be seeing them at the end of the week and I'm super excited for that. Initially, when I first get home, it's like, it's so great to see them. I adore them. I love my parents. But then after a little while, you get that initial love kind of wears off a little bit. And it's like, you still adore them. You still love them dearly. But it's like, I need a break from you. And so that's how I felt with Babel. I was like, I need to not read this right now. So I read The 7-Year Slip and it was a very good contrast to Babel, for me at least. That's just how I read books. Not everybody's like that, but that's just how I engage with my books. And so I just liked that change of pace. And so that's what I use contemporary romance. I use it just for something quick, something simple, something to kind of relax my brain a little bit after reading like really complex and really like dense narration and a lot of like informational overload. I use them as palate cleansers, knowing that the biggest conflict in a book is just miscommunication between two people can be comforting to some people. I mean, most like dedicated hardcore romance readers hate the miscommunication between two people. I don't know. I'm saying that it's comforting in comparison to like your main character like bleeding out while they're in the middle of a war. That's why I find it a little dismissive when non-romance readers label romance books as like empty calorie garbage, because that's not true. Okay, yeah, it's more lighthearted. It's a bit more simple narration-wise, but I don't think that it's just nothing. With every genre, there's a different experience that you can have when you're reading their books. To think so lowly of someone or just a whole genre because it's simple, it just seems so pretentious. You're gonna get wrinkles for scrunching up your face like that so often. Like, they just have, people who are that pretentious just have a permanent scowl, and they have kidney stones that they're always passing. Like, they're always clenching. Like, dude, let go, unclench. Thankfully, not a lot of people are very vocal about blatantly disliking people who consume romance books and just hating romance books as a whole, but some people do have an issue with the amount of promotion that romance books get. People are saying that real literature is dead because there's a table at Barnes & Noble dedicated to the overpopulation of books with cartoon covers. Listen, I'm not a fan of the onslaught of cartoon book covers either. They all kind of look ugly. Not to diss or shade the artist. Like, the people on the covers, they just look kind of ugly sometimes. No shade though. Despite all of that, people are acting like those books are the only books that exist in Barnes & Noble. Like, have you tried looking to the left of the booktok table? Or maybe to the right? Or maybe looking behind you? Or maybe looking like a couple sections down? I don't know. Have you tried looking literally anywhere else in the store? Like, have you tried looking at the shelves? I don't know, guys. It's like, so you would think that every shelf in Barnes & Noble was head to toe full of Sarah J. Maas and Rebecca Yarros books. Like, guys, it's not just booktok books. Like, please, like, take 2 seconds to just look. So annoying. That whole argument just pisses me off because it only tattles on the people who haven't actually like taken the time to look for other books. Like, yes, romance books are the books that tend to get the most popular on TikTok. But if you try being just a tad bit more specific when you're searching for books on TikTok, then you'll find a community full of people who are into the same books as you. If you want better book recommendations, I'm sorry, I know you hate to hear it, but you're gonna have to work for it just a little bit. Okay, I'm sorry, stinker butt. I'm sorry, you have to put in some elbow grease. You gotta put in a little bit of effort. I apologize that it's not just gonna be spoon-fed to you, but you're just gonna have to dig a little bit. Get a shovel and get to work. Like me, for example, I had to put in the work to find the weird literature books. Oh my god, I love a good weird literature book. You know, I read a book recently called YN by Esther Yi, which is about a woman who becomes obsessed with a K-pop idol and like just her mentality and just like the psychological so good. First of all, the main character, that chick was whack, but I don't know. The book, it was just a fever dream in the best way possible. I did end up giving it 3 stars though. You know, despite me praising it, I also only gave it 3 stars. Listen, it can get a little confusing. It was an interesting concept. It wasn't terrible. Read it if you want. We cannot talk about romance readers without talking about the spice talk people. I said in my weird book talk incident video many moons ago, but I said in that video that some people who exclusively read smutty books are the equivalent of male gooners. I would like to expand on that statement a little bit because that was a general statement that packs a heavy punch. Not only was it a generalization, but it was also a really heavy and extreme generalization. So I apologize. Let me explain myself. Would I equate the smut readers to men who spend every waking moment yoinking their meat sticks? No, I think those are just 2 different things. But I think what makes people make that sort of comparison, because it's not just me, I'm not the first person to say that. A lot of people hold that mentality. And I think that what makes people make that comparison is the way that smut readers engage with their books. Like, it's a meme on TikTok to ask, does this book have spice? Because if the book doesn't have spice, they're not reading it. And when spice talk people say that statement, you know, it kind of weirds people out, because why would you only read books that have spice in it? That feels so limiting. It's a little bit weird. Like, why do your characters have to be getting their freak on in your books in order for you to enjoy it? Call me Mr. Flintstone, I can make your bed right. Whether or not you would call someone an addict for only consuming smutty books is a difficult question to answer. I suppose in theory, anyone can get addicted to anything. If it's a life-ruining addiction, however, then we should be more compassionate about that and promote rehabilitation instead of resorting to scrutinizing someone. For the most part, though, smut readers can be annoying, but they are ultimately harmless as long as they interact with the subject in a manner that isn't harmful to themselves and others. My weird book talk incident video is a perfect example of people not engaging with the subject in an appropriate manner. That's what happens when it gets a little too far, a little too extreme. Truthfully, that doesn't happen too terribly often, at least on a public scale. TLDR, read your smutty books, you filthy freaks. Just don't rope unsuspecting people into it. 'Tis all. While we're on the topic of smut and smutty books, we have to talk about bike talk and mask talk. Please. I've been trying to avoid it. I really have. Like, I feel like I'm losing brain cells saying those phrases. Bike talk, mask talk. Like, what am I even saying? None of these words are in the Bible. The biker people and the people who cosplay Ghostface or whatever, I don't know, that one guy from Call of Duty, they like him for some reason. Those people have taken it upon themselves to pander to the booktok women, specifically the ones who proudly read their spicy books. There have been creators on YouTube who have taken time out of their days and shortened their lifespans in order to endure that level of cringe. Like, there's so many videos about it. I'm not one of those creators. Fortunately for you and my sanity, I'm not doing that. I mean, I'm gonna be talking about it now, but I'm not making a whole dedicated video to mask talk and bike talk. I'm sorry. Maybe I'll make another boyfriend ASMR video to make it up for the people who want to watch me suffer. Some people really like to watch me suffer. I'll make it up to you, maybe sometime, not today. I'm choosing peace for right now. The majority of book talk, even people who are technically the target audience of the cringe fest, agree that the pandering is weird. Nobody wants you, Nathan. Please stop sharing that you've read Haunting Adeline. We don't care. Leave me alone. You're scaring me and my homegirls. Unfortunately, there's a small group of people who eat up the biker content. So unfortunately, the bikers, the maskers, they have zero incentive to stop making these types of videos. And so the pandering continues. It's a modern day tragedy indeed. What did Megan say? He don't want to be saved, don't save him. Got 20 missed calls, he faded. White boy wasted, Channing Tatum. I feel like I'm losing the plot of the movie a little bit because this video is supposed to be about how book talk is ruining reading. Whoops, my bad. Haha, got a little carried away there. The whole point of all of this nonsense was to highlight one of the many reasons why readers are ashamed to be associated with book talk. Like I said, book talk is about all books, not just one genre. All books matter. All books matter. I'm getting war flashbacks. It sucks being a proud book talker just to be lumped in with the weirdos that seem to be getting the most attention when it comes to book talk. It's like the things that are associated with book talk now is just, it's crazy, y'all. It's a little crazy. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to being in a fandom that isn't well liked or taken seriously. For example, I'm fighting for my life every single time that I mention that I'm a 21 Pilots fan in the year 2024. It's brutal out here, though, to be honest. A good chunk of the fan base is a bit insufferable. Guys, no shade. Some of them are a little annoying, but that's not the point. I'm normal. I'm a normal girl. An ordinary girl, like Hannah Montana said. I'm an ordinary girl with ordinary thoughts. Normal girl with normal thoughts inside of my normal brain. Maybe if I keep saying it over and over again, it'll be true. Anyway, stream backslide. You should let go. It's over my head. The tropification of books. A lot of books on book talk are reduced down to the tropes that appear in them. It's basically the AO3 tagging system for published books. Usually tropes are within romance books, but they also occasionally bleed into other genres like fantasy, for example. The problem that some people have with books being reduced to tropes is how the stories feel kind of like copies of each other due to the similar plot points that show up in the books. Again, this is why I use contemporary romance books as palate cleansers, all right? They do feel repetitive, okay? I'll admit. But that's the point. I'm so overwhelmed with a dense book that has like a lot of information in it. And so reading something that doesn't require me to know a lot or retain a lot, that helps. Authors pandering to book talk by writing around tropes is why people think that book talk is ruining publishing in the first place. Authors aren't writing good books anymore because that's not what's going to go viral on TikTok. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's the mentality that some authors have, but I don't think that's really that big of an issue. Like, I don't think that a lot of authors, or like a notable number of authors, are thinking like that. Like, I would say that a good solid maybe 90% of authors actually do love their craft and want to write stories that they want to make. I really just think that the whole tropes thing, I think that's just a marketing strategy for authors. Yeah, labeling your book with tropes is a great way to market your book, but I don't think that a lot of books are just trope heavy. I know there are books out there that are trope heavy, okay? I've seen them. I know they exist. But I don't think that a concerning amount of books are like that, and I don't think that authors are going to continue to use tropes like that in the future. I don't know. Maybe that's just me being too positive. I could be wrong. But honestly, it's like, I just don't think that it's like some pandemic that's happening in the book sphere. Despite all of that, I do agree that some of the tropes are just blatant spoilers, because that's another thing that people don't like about tropes. It's like, it just tells the reader exactly what's gonna happen in the book. And yeah, I see that. Like, for example, when something is marketed as an enemies to lovers and it's a fantasy book, then you're already gonna know that the main character is gonna fall in love with someone, and that may not have even been the main focal point of the book. Like the book, like with romantasy, for example, romantasy follows, it's like, it's a romance book, but it's in like a fantasy realm. But some fantasy books are tropified, but it's not a romantasy, so the romance either is a subplot or it's just like a random element that is tossed into a book. And so being told that it's enemies to lovers kind of spoils that, because like that's not what the book's about. So you're going into the book just knowing that random factoid, and that feels a bit like a spoiler, and some people really don't like that. It's one thing to go into a romance book knowing the type of romance that is inside of that romance book, because when you're reading a romance book, you're expecting romance to be in the romance book. But with fantasy books, there's not always romance. So yeah, it kind of feels like a spoiler. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. It's a valid concern to have, okay? I personally have never really cared too terribly much about knowing what tropes are in a book, but some people, they're a little iffy about that, and that's fine, okay? I'm not diminishing or downplaying that. If that's you, okay, I hear you. I root for you.
Hello? Bojack, I read the pages you sent me last night, and I have to tell you, your book is absolutely, without a doubt, the most gibberish. It's gibberish.
What day is it?
Let's see what you got here. You got 20 pages of Doctor Who erotic fan fiction, a recipe for soup, 5 different theories about how 9/11 happened, and a bunch of embedded YouTube videos that can't possibly be printed in book form.
BookTok also has this weird thing about reading goals and the amount of books that people are reading, which is such an odd thing to be cynical about. Some people think that reading over 100+ books in 1 year is overconsumption. Huh? If you watch my last video, which is about water bottles or reusable cups, I don't know, I like that video. I actually really like that video. You should watch it if you haven't. In that video, I said that I love a good conversation about overconsumption. Like, it's literally one of my favorite things to yap about. I love talking about overconsumption, and I love criticizing people for overconsuming, because you guys are crazy and y'all need to be called out for it. However, in this case though, we may need to step back for a second and check to see if there's a tumor growing in your brain that's affecting your reasoning skills, because what do you mean this is overconsumption? Like, there's a very real and valid conversation that we can have about people who do like massive book hauls, for example, $900 Barnes and Noble book hauls. we can talk about them. I think that is the closest that we're gonna get with the overconsumption conversation in the book sphere. But I don't think it's overconsumption for somebody to read 100 books a year. It just doesn't even make any sense. Because how do you know how they're reading their books? Because on top of physical books, right? There are Kindles, audiobooks exist, hell, libraries exist. How do you know that they're owning these physical books? Like, I don't know, it's such a far-fetched conclusion to jump to that I'm surprised how anybody got there in the first place. I'm confused. How do we get from point A to point W? It just doesn't make any sense. Also, some people say that people who read like 200 books in 1 year, I don't know, they're either lying, unemployed, or a mix of both, which that's possible, sure, but also who cares? You know, it's like, what does a random person on the internet proclaiming that they read 600 books in 1 year have to do with me or you? Like, let people lie on the internet. People do it all the time, whether you like it or not. The constant policing of what people should be reading and how people should be reading it is exhausting, and it sucks the fun out of everything. Like, please catch a vibe. Obviously, if there are legitimate concerns about an author and their books, then absolutely speak up. For example, I mentioned ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses, the series, and Sarah J. Maas. Did you know that Sarah J. Maas used the death of Breonna Taylor to promote the release of one of her books? And that's before we get into the Zionism. So what now? Do what you want with that information. When I say policing reading habits and behaviors, I mean stuff like saying that audiobooks aren't real books and complaining about the people that decorate their Kindles and like have the super complicated robotic arm and the clicker for the Kindles and like just have like a whole fancy setup for it. Once again, catch a vibe. I say it once more, catch a vibe. One more time, catch a vibe. So the $1 million question, is BookTok ruining reading? No. Is BookTok ruining the publishing industry? No. I have over 700 books in my TBR as of right now, and most of them came from BookTok. Like, there is something for everyone out there if you look hard enough. Listen, it's not gonna come to you super easily. It's not gonna be the first thing that pops up. I know that can be annoying. I don't know why I want to apologize so much today, but I apologize. But that's how it is. But it's also not hiding from you either. All right, I'm off my soapbox. That was the master list of all the little things that I've noticed about BookTok, and I didn't even cover everything, truthfully. I really tried to condense this video down. Like, I've been yapping for an hour straight, y'all. I'm losing it over here. Trust me, we would be here all day if I genuinely took time out of my life to give you every little thing I've seen. And I'm sure some of you would love that. And you're like, please, world, please, daddy, please keep talking. I love it when you do that. But you're not the one who has to edit this video. So I'm done. Time for the fun part of the video. Here are 10 books that I recommend. These are not my absolute favorite books ever. Some of them are my favorite books ever, and I'll get to those when I get to those. But these are just 10 general book recommendations. I tried being diverse with the books, and hey, you may or may not like them depending on what the genre is for these books. So don't be mean. Let's start with number one. Number one is the Magnolia Park series by Jessa Hastings. I've only read the first 3 books. The third book destroyed me. I made the mistake of letting the characters get too close to the heart, and it cost me. I learned my lesson. I'm never doing it again. So I have to step back from this series for right now because of that. But the Magnolia Park series, it's a romance series, but I consider it an anti-romance series because the first book, the third book, and the 5th book of the series follows Magnolia Parks and BJ Ballantyne. I know, unfortunate name, just please. Unfortunate name aside, okay, these two have a really toxic back and forth, on again, off again relationship because BJ cheated on Magnolia and they are just so madly in love with each other, but obviously Magnolia just is trying to forgive him for the cheating. Some people don't like cheating in their books, or specifically their romance books. I understand. So if you don't like cheating and like watching somebody try to forgive a cheater, you're not going to vibe with at least the first book, the third book, and the 5th book. You're not going to like those. But you may like the 2nd book and the 4th book, which is the Daisy Hates series, sort of. It's all the Magnolia Parks universe, but the 2nd book and the 4th book follow Daisy Hates, which is like more of a mafia romance kind of vibe. Daisy and her brother, they're in the mafia. Mainly her brother's in the mafia, and she's just mafia adjacent. That's more of a mafia romance, so if, you know, if that's your cup of tea, then go ham. Go ham. Me personally, I like the toxicity of Magnolia and BJ. I love the back and forth. It's so fun. All right, a lot of people say that the Magnolia Park series is kind of like Gossip Girl. Hey, it kind of is. I don't know. It's fun. It's fun. Read it if you want. I love it. 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 All right, book number 2, The Secret History. Oh, I have it. Oh, but I'm not getting it out. It's fine. The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I read this semi-recently, not too like a couple months ago. At this point, I would say. I adored it. It was on track to being a 5-star read for me, but about 2/3 of the way through to the book, I kind of got a little bored, but then I bounced back. It's not boring, okay? I just got a little bored. I don't know if it was the book or if it was me. I would not say that it's a murder mystery because you know who's murdered and you know who did it. So I'm like, it's not much of a mystery if you know who died and know who the killer is, but it's like, it's more of a psychological thing. It's like, okay, because the first, like the prologue of the book is like, yeah, we did this bad thing to this classmate. And so the whole book is basically just like, well, why the hell did you do that? And then like the psychological effects of committing that murder and just like, I don't know, it's a whole thing. And I think it's really interesting. And a lot of people who are into literary fiction, like that is the epitome. It's like the best of the best of dark academia, of literary fiction. Like a lot of people really like this book. It's a very popular book on BookTok. I recommend it. Book number 3, Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. Don't ask me a single thing about this book. I know I added this to the list, but also don't ask me a single thing about this book. I don't know what happens. Time travel's involved. I know that. I listened to this book audiobook style, okay, while I was doing a big hefty semester long project. So I was audiobooking this one. Truthfully, all I could tell you that the vibes were immaculate. And I really enjoyed listening to the book. I just don't think I retained a single thing outside of the time travel. I don't think I retained a single thing. I think a bridge might have been involved at one point, if that helps. It was such a vibe read for me. This was the definition of a vibe read. I don't know what happened. I can't tell you a single character's name, but I loved the vibes. So you might like the vibe too. Hence the reason why it made the list. Book number 4, The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. It is a YA fantasy. It's always marketed as enemies to lovers on BookTok at least. And I guess I've only read the first book in the series, so I can't speak on the rest of it and how good the rest of the series is. But I did really enjoy The Cruel Prince because it's different than other fantasy novels because it's like, I don't want to say it's like a political fantasy, but it is kind of like a political adjacent. It's less about the romance, because despite it being marketed as enemies to lovers, it's like less about the romance and it's more about just the dynamics between like the kingdoms and like the political figures of this like fantasy realm. Read it if you want. I enjoyed myself. Number 5. I talked about this in a video before, but Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. Again, I'm reading Babel right now by R.F. Kuang. R.F. Kuang is just so good. I love her writing so much. She has such a way with words. It's been a while since I've read this book. I apologize. I'm talking out of my booty cheeks right now. But it's about an author named Junie. She graduated at the same college as this other author named Athena. And Athena went to be the super famous published author. And she's like, was literally secured a Netflix deal for one of her books. Meanwhile, Junie is not as successful, despite, again, like taking the same exact steps, going the same exact road as Athena. But Athena ended up being popular. Junie ended up being obscure and washed out and in the shadows. And so Junie plagiarizing a book that she wrote, because the book that she wrote was Athena's book. It's about plagiarism, and Athena is Chinese American and Junie's white. So, and the book that she plagiarized and stole was about Chinese history. And yeah, it was crazy. It was a crazy book. I enjoyed the crap out of it personally. I really love it. And so I highly recommend any of R.F. Kuang's books. I haven't read all of it. Like, I really want to get into the Poppy War soon. I started with Babel right now because I just couldn't commit to a full series yet, but I have a feeling that I'm going to really enjoy the Poppy series because every single person I've ever seen who has read the Poppy series, they loved it. I think it's safe to say that her books are really good. So you don't have to read Yellowface. You can also read Babel. Again, I'm enjoying Babel right now myself. I adore it. It's like a dark academia. It's like urban fantasy-ish historical fiction type of ordeal. All right, book number 6, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. The Perks of Being a Wallflower is one of my absolute, if not, I think it is my favorite book of all time. I love it so much. Anytime I see somebody say that they don't like the book, an angel in heaven dies. I think an angel in my heaven dies, at least. Like, I feel a little like my lifespan kind of just ebbs away every time someone says they don't like the book. It hurts me on a level that is beyond spiritual. It's beyond comprehension, I think. I adore The Perks of Being a Wallflower, and of course I loved the movie. It's not a one-to-one thing, okay, but I think that the movie did the book justice, all things considered. It's about a boy, his name's Charlie, and it's him. He's writing in a journal, or he's writing letters, excuse me. It's not a journal. He's writing letters to a friend. Doesn't matter who the friend is. We don't know. It's not important. But he's writing letters to a friend, and he's recounting he's not recounting, but he's writing about his days throughout his first year of high school. It's one of my favorite books of all time, and I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. If you read any book on this list, read that one. Book number 7 is Junie B. Jones. The B stands for Beatrice, but she just likes B, and that's all. Sometimes you just have to sit back and read a Junie B. Jones book. I'm telling you, at your grown age, you think I'm too old for this. No. Sometimes you just need to read Junie B. Jones. My favorite Junie B. Jones book is the Valentine's Day one. What can I say? I'm a sucker for romance. Number 8, One Day in December by Josie Silver. This is a Christmas book. Yeah. But like, it also doesn't just take place in December though. It takes place throughout the year, but it kind of focuses on like a particular December because it's about a girl. I don't remember her name. I read this back in December. Okay. I read this in December, which was how many months ago at this point? I don't know. I don't remember the names of the characters, but I do remember the story. So our main female character, she sees this man at a bus stop. She's on the bus, the man's off the bus. And they have like a moment for like 20 seconds. And it's like, it's a love at first sight kind of thing. Oh, usually I don't like love at first sight, but I really like this one for some reason. Yeah, she sees this man at the bus stop, except they don't exchange words. They don't say anything to each other. They just see each other for that 20 seconds. And then it's over for her. Like, she is in, right? But she doesn't see bus stop boy ever again, right? It's very sad. Truly. Now, she's not obsessed or anything crazy like that, thankfully, but she's like, man, I would kill to see that guy again. All right, flash forward to some duration of time, I don't know. Her friend introduced our main character to her new boyfriend, and her new boyfriend ends up being the dude from the bus stop. So the book is basically just about a girl being in love with her friend's boyfriend. It kind of sounds icky when I say it out loud, but I promise it's not that bad. I really enjoyed the book. It hurts my soul, you know, right person, wrong timing. It just hits right in the feels for me. So I really enjoyed the story, and read it during Christmas time if you want. It's not really a overly Christmassy book though. It's more like a winter book. Book number 9, The Great Gatsby. All right, it's a good classic. It's one of my favorite classic books, I think. The Great Gatsby was the whole reason why I got back into consistently reading. Like, I had an urge last year to read The Great Gatsby, read it, and I was like, let me read another book. And then I read another book, and then another book, and then another book, and the rest was history. And here I am, talking to you about it. Good soup. Highly recommend it. Book number 10 is The Inmate by Frida McFadden. Frida McFadden is so easy to read when it comes to the thriller mystery genre. The Inmate was the first Frida McFadden book I read. Actually, The Inmate was what I read after reading The Great Gatsby. What's great about her mysteries is that they are fast-paced. and really easy to get into. I mean, will they blow your mind? No, probably not. But also, if you're just trying to dip your toes into the genre, I think that that's a great place to start. All right, that's technically the last book, but I also mentioned the book A Wrinkle in Time. I said that at the end of the video, I would talk about why I love A Wrinkle in Time, the graphic novel version specifically. So a little bit of lore for me, for WURLD, your favorite and the only YouTuber ever. A Wrinkle in Time, the graphic novel version. I have vivid memories from middle school. I've blocked out a lot of memories from middle school. We don't talk about middle school. Getting the heebie-jeebies just thinking about it. But one of the more fonder memories I have of middle school was my library at my middle school had this not this specific copy, but they had a copy of this version of A Wrinkle in Time, the graphic novel version. I would check out this book, I don't know how many times. Yeah, because I was a beast. I was a beast reader back then. But I found myself every single time I saw this on the shelf at the library, I felt obligated to check it out. It was like we gravitated towards each other. Like, this is just such a comfort read to me. It's not even about like the story itself that's comforting. I think it's just everything. It's just everything to me. And it's like, honestly, when I read this book, I forget that I'm reading a children's book, because this isn't a young adult book. This is a children's book, y'all. It doesn't feel like a children's book. This feels like a very complex children's book to me. That's all I wanted to talk about today. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for indulging me and letting me talk. And yeah, this is a beefy video. I talked about a lot of different points, and I tried to put it under the blanket statement of, is BookTok ruining reading? Because a lot of people do have a lot of issues with BookTok and like some of the little nitpicky things. And I just didn't think that it, like, those individual issues needed to be its own video, so I decided to kind of all lump it together. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like the video, give it a like, or don't, doesn't matter. Subscribe if you want, or don't, doesn't matter. All the links to my social medias will be linked down in the description below. If you think I'm a booktuber, I'm not. I just occasionally talk about books. I love talking about books, but I'm not a full-fledged booktuber. So if that's what if you're subscribing for more book related content, I fear you aren't gonna get what you're looking for. But I will continue to insert my unwanted opinions here and there. But thank you so much for watching. I'll see y'all sometime. I don't know. Okay, bye.